This is one of the best, most fun, and easiest to use decks in Pokemon Pocket right now. Whether you're a new player looking for a deck that you can just pick up and run with, or a veteran trying to improve your game, this deck is super user-friendly and will actually teach you to get better at the game just by playing it. To give you an idea of how good this deck is, this deck took me to Ultra Ball in the first few days of playing Ranked when it was really competitive. I placed 6th in a 100+ player tournament, and when I was playing against a bunch of other tournament players, including some former champions of Pokemon Pocket, I got more wins than anybody just playing against my friends using this deck. So I'm just going to go over the cards in the deck, how you can get them if you don't have them already, and then we'll go over some of my real tournament games playing this deck as I teach you some of the crazy combos you can pull off. So let's talk cards. This deck uses some very common cards that are really easy to get. The two main Pokemon in this deck are Starmie EX from the Genetic Apex Charizard Booster Pack. You can also get Sabrina in that one according to Pokezone, and Leafeon EX from Triumphant Light. These are the two heroes of the deck. We're going to start with Starmie because this is your main attacker. Starmie is one of the fastest attackers in the game, and that's still true. Able to deal 90 damage with only 2 water energy, it can retreat for free. Starmie can two-shot almost any Pokemon in the entire game. Just take it out with 2 attacks. Leafeon is the deck's secondary attacker. It's not quite as good as Starmie. With 70 damage, though, it'll still be KOing most Pokemon in 2 hits, and its special ability lets it generate a Leaf Energy for free. This is really important because it means you can run the deck with just Water Energy. You don't need any Leaf Energy at all. Leafeon will create its own Leaf Energy, and so you can treat it like a Water Pokemon. This means that the supporter card Irida will work in this deck, healing 40 damage from all Pokemon that have water energy attached, including Leafeon, giving the deck some really cool healing abilities. We're also going to run 2 of the Poketool Cape in this deck. This will prevent Starmie from being one-shot by things like Giratina's 130 damage attack, and it'll prevent Leafeon from being one-shot by Giratina plus poke from like a Darkrai Greninja, which could do 150 damage. So we're running 2 capes, that's really important. And also, since this deck relies very heavily on evolved Pokemon, we definitely want to run 1 Poke Communicator and 1 Iono, which will help us make sure we can get the evolutions when we need them. I will say that all of the cards in this deck are super easy to use, except for Poke Communicator and Iono. Those are 2 cards that newer players will more commonly make mistakes with, even veterans might make mistakes with those cards. But this deck makes them really easy to use. It becomes really obvious to see when you want to play Poke Communicator and when you don't, because you're only running 2 different lines of Pokemon, and it'll train you to get better with these cards. Use them when it makes sense, not use them when it doesn't. Such a good learning deck. We're going to wrap this deck up with 2 Sabrinas and 1 Cyrus. That way you'll always be able to mess with your opponent, grab that bench Pokemon, take it to the front, assassinate it, and then do it again next turn. It'll drive your opponent or friends completely crazy, and it feels so good to do that. It feels so good. And this deck will really help you get better with Sabrina and Cyrus if you're not already familiar with them. So let's go into how the deck itself plays. So what you're watching on the screen here is actually a recording of one of my tournament games. The tournament I came in 6th place. This was the LLL. You can find it on Limitless. It's one of the bigger tournaments. And I had a lot of fun. I actually knew my opponent, which was kind of funny. So there was, a little bit of rivalry there at the time. Okay, so I get to go first. This deck likes to go second. You see here I'm starting with Eevee, that's my basic Pokemon, and starting with Eevee is pretty good. Even though Starmie is the more powerful attacker, Eevee has the ability when it evolves to generate a Leaf Energy and then retreat for free. So even if you don't want Eevee, you can always freely retreat Eevee, allowing you to build Staryu, Starmie in the back. So it's never too bad to start with Eevee. No matter whether you start Eevee or Staryu, it's always good. And that's what makes a good deck. Because some decks, like, the Arceus plus decks, you might not want to start with Arceus, right? You might want your Carnivine to go in, and then if you start with Arceus, it's really awkward. This deck no matter what happens, you're good. You will always start with Eevee or Staryu, which makes it, again, really easy because the deck doesn't brick like that. Alright, I drew my Leafeon. That's great. You know, gonna go for the Oak, get 2 more cards. More Leafeons, another Pokeball. You always want to play these. And then now I've got 2 Eevees. I can evolve them both into Leafeons, or I can hold on to one of them, maybe, and try to Poke-Calm it later. And this is where the deck can go from easy mode to medium mode, because you kind of want to think about these decisions. Do I want to play with 2 Leafeons, or do I want to hold one of the Leafeons and trade it for later to get a Starmie? If you just want to play the deck on easy mode, and this is a really easy, beginner-friendly deck, just evolve all your Pokemon and attack. This deck is so cool, you can win just by doing that. Just by, like, attacking and playing the cards normally, you can win. And then if you want to try it at a little bit of higher level, like more competitive level, you might think of, okay, maybe I should hold on to the Leafeon a little bit, right? Maybe I could trade it using Pokecoms. Maybe I could trade it for a Starmie, because I don't have a Starmie in my hand right now. Okay, so now I'm poisoned, right? My opponent's using a very scary poison deck with like Quagsires and stuff. I drew my Starmie, so I could just evolve everything. Yeah, no, all that theory stuff was just for you guys. In this game, I was lucky, and I just drew everything I needed. So, yeah, that's another cool thing about this deck. Even though it uses evolved Pokemon, you usually will draw the cards you need, because they're only stage 1s. You know, it's very rare you don't get any of the evolutions you want. It does happen, but it's pretty rare. Now, in this situation, I've got a bit of a choice, right? I could just give myself Grass Energy, which I choose to do, and then I put the Water Energy on my Staryu. The reason I'm doing it like this is now Leafeon can attack, but I can also attach Water Energy to Starmie on the same turn, meaning that Starmie will be ready to go next turn. And so just getting that little bit of free energy from the Leafeon means Starmie will activate a full turn faster, which is so valuable. And we see here, I played the Irida card. It's healing my Leafeon to full. I put a cape on it. Now Leafeon has tons of health, even though it's going to take a little bit of damage from the Rocky Helmet there. That's totally fine. It's at 140 health, which means that it can tank a ton of damage, right? And I'm kind of predicting, okay, what could my opponent do? What could my opponent do? Well, you know, they could hit me for a lot of damage, so I want to have some extra tankiness here. All right, now that they're evolving their Pokemon in the back, now they can poison me whenever they want. They got Leaf, right? And the reason they're playing Leaf here is because they want to keep that Quag, little Quag. Okay, so they've just retreated their Wooper. They want to save it and try to evolve it into a Clodsire. They just don't have one in their hand right now. They're hoping to draw it next turn. I can't let them get away with that. Clodsire's too powerful. But there are a couple of things I do this turn that are really instructive for the deck. First, I use Leafeon's ability and give the energy to a benched Leafeon so that it could attack next turn if it needed to. Then I give the water energy to Starmie, right? And the careful energy decisions will really help you get better with that in this deck. Then I play Sabrina to bring out their Wooper so I can KO it before it gets the chance to evolve. And my opponent just surrenders because they know that there's nothing they can do now. There's nothing they could do. This deck is so powerful. You'll very quickly have your evolutions, all your attacks, you'll get tons of free energy, and your opponent cannot hide from you on the bench. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that was just game 1. I got a little lucky. Game 1. Let's take a look at game 2. All right, let's take a look at game 2, because we're not going to do as well game 2. Spoilers. We're not going to do as well game 2. Let's take a look. I mean, I've already showed you that I went 5-0 through this part of the tournament, so you kind of know what's going to happen, but just, you know, some spoilers if you're paying attention. All right, so I get to go second. In theory, this deck really loves to go second. It loves that extra energy. I throw Staryu down, I throw another Staryu down, and that might have been a mistake. Here's the thing. I have a Pokeball in my hand, right? That Pokeball has got to give me Eevee. There's nothing else that Pokeball could give me except Eevee. I don't have any other basic Pokemon. So since I have a Staryu, another Staryu, and an Eevee, why would I put both Staryu on the field? I could have saved one of those and then maybe Pokecombed it later, because I don't know which evolution card I'm going to draw. This is how the deck teaches you to get better. All right, this is how it kind of teaches you. I realized while I was doing this that I should have saved one of the Staryus in my hand, because then I might have had the chance to Pokecom the Staryu, and it could have been a Starmie or a Leafeon, but I would have been fine no matter what. But I messed up. Now I have both Staryus on the field. If I get Pokecom, I Pokecom the Eevee. But what if it turns into a Leafeon? Then I'm completely stuck, right? So this deck can kind of teach you how to not make mistakes with some of the trickier cards, like Pokecom, which requires you to think a few turns in advance. But even if you don't do that, even if you do what I did here and just throw your cards onto the field, this is what I mean about the deck being beginner friendly, you'll still be fine. In this particular case, you see, I still drew the Leafeon. I didn't get Pokecom. It didn't matter. The mistake didn't matter. This deck is so forgiving and kind, even if you mess up. Even if you don't know what I just said for the past, minute of me talking. That's fine. The deck will let you get away with it some of the time, and you can keep playing. That's kind of what makes it pretty good. Now here, looking at the board, you can kind of see I'm in a bit of trouble. Like my opponent, they've got all these evolved cards. They got 3 different evolved cards. They have an EX Clodsire on the field. Clodsire would look really good with this hat, actually. I'm just thinking about that. I don't know why that occurred to me, but I was just like, yeah, Clodsire would look really good with this hat. But the important thing is, though, that this was a pretty bad luck game for me, right? My opponent got all their evolutions. I didn't get mine. They're poisoning me. They're attacking me. It doesn't look like I'm going to win. But we're going to try. Eke out a victory from even the worst possible situation. All right, so, I'm evolving the Eevee into Leafeon here. And then I gotta, what do I do? I'll just retreat the Staryu. I mean, it's gonna die if I leave it there. It's poisoned, So we're gonna put a water energy on Leafeon and then use its ability to get a leaf energy as well, and then give it a cape to make it a little tanky. And now I can attack. Right now I have the ability to attack. So boom, Solar Beam, huge damage. I take a little bit of a counterattack from the Rocky Helmet. And even though our opponent has such a good situation, we're still fighting. We got a prize point. They don't even have a prize point yet. We have a prize point. We have an attacking Leafeon because this deck is just so fast. But they put out the Clodsire. That's pretty scary. Clodsire is a very powerful Pokemon, 160 health, and it does extra damage if you're poisoned. Now they're trying to poison me. But it didn't work. Didn't work. We were very sneaky. We kind of dodged the poison there, got away from it. But they used Cyrus on us, they brought in the Staryu and they were able to take it out, unfortunately. Had I played Irida earlier, maybe I would have been able to heal it and then it wouldn't have gone down like that. That's one of the reasons we have Irida in the deck. It heals your Pokemon and will prevent things like that from happening. Alright, I got the Starmie. Even though I'm in a rough spot, we're still playing. We're still fighting. I use Forest Breath here. Even when you have 3 energy, it's still good to give yourself extra energy, because you never know when you might need to dump energy to retreat, or your opponent might come up with a Team Rocket Grunt and try to steal your energy, right? So putting extra energy on your Pokemon is always good. Unless you're fighting a Gallade or something, but mostly good, usually good. Don't do it against Gallade, but against normal Pokemon, it's good. Gallade will do more damage if you have too much energy. That's, so if you're playing against Gallade, obviously don't do that. All right, so we deal some big damage to that Clodsire. I'm ready to take it out next turn. It's got 90 health. Starmie's staring at it, right? They Sabrina in my Starmie. Uh-oh. I'm so close to winning. All I need to do is take it out. Now here's the thing. If I get poisoned here, I lose. If I don't get poisoned, I win. I got poisoned. Because I got poisoned, Clodsire's attack is going to do too much damage, and Starmie will go down before it can attack. So, But the fact that I was so far behind and still almost won, like I was a coin flip away from winning, should tell you how powerful this deck is, right? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, I have one win. My opponent has one win. Let's go to game three. All right, so this is game three in this best of three, right? And this is just one set in the tournament, right? You've got to win a bunch of these in a row to win the tournament. But this was kind of the most intense match, and I kind of knew my opponent, and I know they're a really good player, so I figured this would be the best showcase of this deck to like really show you kind of what's going on here. All right, so they got an oak. They got an oak, right? I'm a little bit nervous, but look in my hand. I got starmie. The happiest you will be playing this deck is when you start with Staryu or EV plus Leafeon, and you also have starmie, because then you know, turn on your second turn, you're gonna start sweeping. You're gonna start sweeping like you just spilled a bag of rice in your kitchen. You are gonna be sweeping like there's no tomorrow. you're just gonna be taking everybody out. The reason I'm hesitating here is because I'm thinking, what if they evolve? You know, should I attack? Is it worth the damage? I'm like, nah, I don't want to attack. I don't feel like attacking. That rocky helmet is scaring me off a little bit. I'm not going to attack it right now. They do evolve. Pretty scary. Pretty scary. But that's okay. That's fine. We're pretty scary too. I'm going to play the Pokeball right away. Get another Staryu. That's pretty good. Now we evolve into Starmie. We're ready to attack. We're ready to fight. But what I also do here is I put Eevee on the bench. Just one of them. I'm saving the other one for that Pokecom I got in my hand. Right? I'm saving it for Pokecom in case I need to try to Pokecom to try to get an evolution card later, right? Now we attack Clodsire. Big damage. We just did 90 damage to that Clodsire. It's one of the tankiest Pokemon in the game, and we just took off over half its health, right? That's how powerful this deck is. It's so strong. We've got a good bench. We've got good energy. And then they use Leaf. They use Leaf, and Clodsire runs away. Right? And we talked about this. One of the scariest things you can do with this deck is disrespect your opponent's bench. You think you're escaping, Clodsire? Nuh-uh. No. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Clodsire is not going to escape. That's not what's happening here. This is why we run Cyrus and Sabrina. Sabrina will yoink in benched Pokemon when there's like only one. But when your opponent has a whole bunch of benched Pokemon, then you want to use Cyrus. You want to take in the damaged bench Pokemon. The first thing I do, though, is I use Pokecom on the Eevee to get Leafeon, and now I can evolve my benched Eevee. Right? That's why I was saving that one in my hand, to use Pokecom with it. We Cyrus in the Clodsire, and wipe it out. This is just... what can you do? What can you do? That thing had 160 health. It's gone. It's just gone. Starmie is so strong when you get it what's called on curve, when you get it really quickly, like as fast as possible, like as soon as you can get it. Energy, evolve, attack. It's so good. Okay, so my opponent, you know, they're evolving stuff, they're playing around. But right now, they can't even take out Starmie. They definitely can't take out Leafeon. I could free retreat into Leafeon. They know it, and they surrender. I win the best of three. And this is how I went completely undefeated before the top cut of this tournament. I didn't make it out of the top cut, unfortunately. But I was 5-0. I was undefeated in the Swiss rounds using this deck. This deck is really good, and look, it's not going to take you to Master Ball. It's not the best deck. It's not the most meta deck. But it can win games, it's really fun, and it will teach you to get better at using cards like Poke Communicator, Iono, Sabrina, and Cyrus. It'll teach you to get better with weird energy manipulation, retreating, and healing. And it's just a really good learning deck that can beat some of the top decks with a little bit of luck. I highly recommend checking it out. Let me know if it helped you climb in ranked or take a tournament or just pick up a game against your friend down in the comments, and I'll catch you later.